Big breaking news coming in here on headlines today. India has called off the foreign secretary level talks that were to happen on the 25th of this month with Pakistan. They've been cancelled in light of Pakistan High Commissioner Abdul Basit meeting with separatist leaders at the Pakistan High Commission today. Meeting between separatist leaders and the Pakistan High Commissioner is over. Shabir Shah's meeting with the Pakistan High Commissioner happened just a short while ago, where they said they wanted trilateral talks, as a result of which India has reacted sharply to Pakistan's continuing provocation. It's the impunity with which it meets people who would see India broken up, and India has told Pakistan to take a walk on exploratory foreign secretary level talks that Pakistan, in fact, had called for. Editor, Strategic Affairs, Gaurav Sawant with us. Gaurav, India biting the bullet. We haven't seen this kind of abrupt action happen before, perhaps. The government taking a strong view, reacting to the provocation by the Pakistan High Commissioner, who clearly isn't acting of his own accord. These are instructions from the very top of the Pakistani establishment, cancelling the foreign secretary level talks.
Twin provocations that came from Pakistan. Now, sources in the Ministry of External Affairs have confirmed that foreign secretary level talks will be held when the right environment is created by Pakistan. You cannot have firing at the line of control. Also, Pakistan meeting separatist leaders when India has made it very clear to Pakistan it does not appreciate such kind of an interaction, especially before important talks. Pakistan going to the extent of saying, the separatist leaders going to the extent of saying that they wanted trilateral talks, the separatists, Pakistan and India.
Yes.
Now, India has taken a strong exception to statements like this, and sources in the Ministry of External Affairs have confirmed to headlines today that Foreign Secretary Sujata Singh will not travel to Islamabad on the 25th of August for the scheduled exploratory talks, Shiv.
What are the, what kind of impact is this going to have, Gaurav? Remember, over the last many occasions, under the UPA, before that, there have been talks scheduled. There have been provocations identical to what we're seeing right now, where, either the visiting dignitary calls on the Hurraiyat or other separatists, or the High Commissioner calls on them. Some kind of direct, very visible provocation happens. But in the past, talks have not been called off, in an intense and immediate manner as this. Clearly, this is a strong message going to Pakistan that it's not business as usual.
Sources in the Ministry of External Affairs have reiterated what Prime Minister Narendra Modi had earlier said, when he was campaigning during elections. He'd made it very clear, goli barood ke beech baatcheet nahi sunai deti hai. And that goli barood has only intensified in the past 24 hours. We've seen a series of ceasefire violations, not just along the line of control south of Pir Panjal, but along the 200-kilometer long international border, and this is something which is completely unacceptable. Last night there were 20 cases, 20 different border outposts of the BSF came under fire, and this couldn't have happened unless this was sanctioned at the highest levels in Pakistan. That is very clear, and this, according to sources in our government, say was Pakistan's attempt to divert attention from what was happening in Islamabad, and this very clearly sources in the government say is unacceptable. Twin provocations, talking to the Hurraiyat when Prime Minister Narendra Modi's swearing-in was taking place. India had made it very clear to Pakistan they would not appreciate the Pakistani leadership speaking to the Hurraiyat at that point of time. Pakistan respected India's views. There is no change in India's stance, and Pakistan cannot talk to separatists. They are not a part of mainstream. They do not represent the people of Jammu and Kashmir. They do not contest elections. So there's no business meeting such elements, and that message from Government of India was ignored by Abdul Basit, Pakistan's High Commissioner to India, and the message now is loud and clear. The talks, according to sources, have been called off.
Well, let's also tell our viewers that Abdul Basit is the High Commissioner of Pakistan to Delhi, but he's not a man who is entrusted with these powers. These are instructions of a sensitive nature that come from the establishment and the Pakistani military itself, because these are provocations that don't just happen off the cuff. These are measured, studied, organized provocations that happen during every or before every round of talks between India and Pakistan. I want to go across to Hamza Amir, our correspondent in Islamabad. Hamza, India has cancelled these talks. The initiative for these talks had been taken by Pakistan. India has consistently held that these talks are exploratory in nature and that they won't be substantive until Pakistan, walks the talk on terrorism and other issues. This particular provocation has proved to be simply too much for the Modi government. They've cancelled these talks with Pakistan. Foreign Secretary level talks, Hamza.
Well, yes, not only, it is a major concern, I would say, on part of India. It is also something that is important, that not only there have been violations on the line of control,
yes,
there have also been very severe issues with the political government which is standing in power. So I think India is also very well aware of the fact that talking to this government, which is vulnerable to fall down, you've got two people who are not leaving Islamabad with thousands of people. They want government to be toppled down. So if that so happens, then anything that goes on, if the secretary level talks would have happened, would have been of no value whatsoever. So that is why
Hamza, just stay with me for a moment. Radha Kumar, former interlocutor on the Kashmir issue, is with us. Madam, what do you think about the government calling off the foreign secretary level talks in the face of twin provocations on the line of control, the international border, as well as the Pakistani High Commissioner meeting separatists ahead of the foreign secretary level talks?
Well, I'm very sorry that these secretary level talks have been called off. I would have hoped that issues like maintaining control on the line of control and containing any problem would have been top of that agenda, because the LOC has to be made stable and peaceful.
Yes.
And now that is one problem. The other, well, I think it was very foolish on both the separatist part and on the Pakistani High Commission's part to meet. They've been meeting quite regularly. It was quite unnecessary to have another meeting at this point in time, especially given that they don't exactly encourage people from Pakistani-administered Kashmir to meet our High Commissioner in Islamabad.
Yes.
So, of course, if that were to happen, if there were to be more meetings, or some meetings at least, between them and our High Commissioner, then perhaps there would be a better ground for a discussion on Kashmir, because then we too would be able to hear from them what they want.
Yes. Madam, where, in your assessment, where do you think India and Pakistan stand? Because, just a few months ago, just 2.5 months ago, Nawaz Sharif had come to India for Prime Minister Modi's swearing-in ceremony. There was, a projected sort of air of bonhomie, the possibility, perhaps, a glimmer of hope that things could, go down a slightly more positive track, notwithstanding some of the things that Narendra Modi had said during his election campaign. Has all of that simply been torn up by what's happened now, leading to the cancellation of these talks?
No, we have this on and off problem with Pakistan, and we have had for 25 or years, you could even say, pretty much since independence. So I would say that we shouldn't conclude that everything is now destroyed. It's yet another one of the hiccups along the way. But I do think that there is a degree of frustration from the point of view of the government of India, in that
yes,
nothing ever seems to build on what has gone before. We keep going back to zero, especially when it comes to Kashmir. And that is indeed a pity. It shouldn't be like we had a peace process, we had lines towards a framework for resolution, and then all of that has just been dumped. And we seem to be starting from the beginning all over again, and that is indeed a great pity.
Radha Kumar, thanks for speaking to Headlines today. A level of frustration has set in. An abrupt answer by the Modi government to Pakistan. Talk to the separatists or talk to us. You cannot talk to both. There are twin provocations on the international border. 9 ceasefire violations in the last 9 days. But there could be no greater provocation than Abdul Basit, the ambassador, the High Commissioner of Pakistan to Delhi, meeting separatists, people who want India to be broken up into little pieces, meeting with them in the national capital under the watch of this government. It hasn't let grass grow under its feet. It's decided to hit out at Pakistan and cancel those foreign secretary level talks. We want to put that into perspective for you. These are foreign secretary level talks. the initiative for which had been taken by Pakistan, asked for by Pakistan. India had entered into an agreement saying we will have these foreign secretary level talks, but they will only be exploratory in nature. They will not be substantive in any sense on the wide-ranging issues that face India and Pakistan's very difficult and historically negative relationship. I want to go back to Gaurav Sawant and bring him in. Gaurav, an active back channel exists between India and Pakistan, but in terms of the perception right now, the political perception as far as the Modi government is concerned, it's going to be as simple as Pakistan provoked, the government reacted and said talks are off the table.
You're spot on there, Shiv. India had made it very clear to Pakistan, we want good relations. And when Prime Minister Narendra Modi invited Pakistan's Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif for the swearing-in ceremony, he wanted to begin on a clean slate. In his conversation with Nawaz Sharif, he clearly said, I bear no ill will towards the people of Pakistan and I want good ties with Pakistan. Before those talks happened, India had made it very clear to Pakistan when Nawaz Sharif comes to India, he should not meet the separatists before he meets the Indian Prime Minister. And that time, Pakistan respected India's views. India hoped that Pakistan would continue with that. But this time, deliberately meeting the Hurriyat, despite India saying that we do not appreciate Pakistan meeting non-elected representatives of Kashmir, Pakistan, Abdul Basit, Pakistan's High Commissioner, met the Hurriyat leadership. Then, as you rightly pointed out, twin provocation, 10 violations of the ceasefire at the international border, plus the violations along the line of control. This was challenging India's authority, especially at a time when Prime Minister Narendra Modi at Leh, while addressing troops in the 14 Corps, had said that Pakistan does not have the military capability to take on India.
All right, I want to get a view from Pakistan. We've got Lieutenant General Hamid Gul, former Director General of the ISI, who's with us on the phone line from Pakistan. General Gul, thanks for speaking to Headlines today. What do you think about this? The perception is multiple provocations by Pakistan. India is saying this is simply not on. Forget about the talks. We can't have them right now.
I think just as well. I think if Mr. Narendra Modi is not in a mood to speak to Pakistan and he is not prepared to even discuss the word K, then I think there is no problem. As far as we are concerned, it's all right. We are comfortable. Let this be so. Because let the Americans go out of Afghanistan and then whatever changes are made, I think only then India will speak to Pakistan and they will talk about Kashmir. Before that, I don't think it is really the kind of campaign that pre-election...
Do you think it's going down the same path, General? I mean, there were perceptions that, you know, when the new government came in, the sort of bonhomie that everyone saw, you know, perhaps provided a glimmer of hope that, you know, there could be some kind of a positive first few steps under the new government in India. Do you think all that's like history now?
Yeah, I think so. This is what, like, Obama talking about peace and winning a peace, Nobel Peace Prize, and talking about closing the Guantanamo Bay and making peace and talking with Russia and partnership with so-and-so and with China and with Russia. And then where do we stand today? Against square one, because there is one power which is has an imperial bug in its mind. And I think India has an imperial bug. They think that they are the inheritors of the British Empire here,
right? Or
Ashoka's empire, if you like to call that.
Okay.
This is not going to happen. The new realities are right now on the ground, and I think as far as Pakistan is concerned, believe you me, it makes no difference. I'm happy if he's not talking to us.
Okay, okay. We know where that view is coming from. General Gul, thanks for speaking to Headlines today. I want to bring in Jyoti Malhotra, senior writer with India Today magazine, and also has been on the been a foreign affairs analyst for many years. Jyoti, thanks for being with us. Your first reaction to the Indian government cancelling the foreign secretary level talks, was this something that was on the cards? Was it expected?
Not at all. I don't think it was on the cards at all. In fact, just this morning, I was speaking to people in the Ministry of External Affairs, and there was no such decision that you know, this is a really, really big step. the fact that Foreign Secretary Sujata Singh was going on the 24th. Actually, she was going one day before the talks.
Yeah.
She would have talks on the 25th, and there was going to be a special plane from the Indian Air Force that was going to bring her back.
Right.
So this decision, I think, is sudden. I think it's very big, and I think it's very, very unfortunate that clearly Prime Minister Narendra Modi has taken this decision.
Yeah.
And I think that
it's a decision from the very top.
I completely believe that it's a decision from the top. There is no other way that that nobody else would have been able to take such a big call, especially when these talks have been sort of coordinated, if you like, between both capitals. I think he's taken this call himself personally. I think it's very unfortunate, because I think that when Prime Minister Narendra Modi invited all the leaders from the SAARC countries, from India's neighborhood, to come and attend his swearing in May, I think that was an incredible gesture of generosity, of telling the neighborhood, of telling India's neighbors that we would like to work with you, we would like to work together.
Yes.
And to do this now at this instance with Pakistan is, I think, very, very unfortunate.
All right. Well, Narendra Modi set the tone, perhaps for last week when he was in Ladakh, with a comment to Pakistan about its conventional strength. I'm going to come back to Jyoti in just a moment. I also want to play out for you what Narendra Modi said from Leh.
हमारे पड़ोसी की मानसिकता ने युद्ध करने की तो ताकत खोती है, लेकिन प्रॉक्सी वॉर के माध्यम से निर्दोष नागरिकों को मारने का सिलसिला चला है। कितने निर्दोष लोगों को मार दिया जा रहा है। युद्ध में जितने जवान शहीद हुए, उससे ज्यादा जवान इन बुज़दिलों की गोलियों से मरने के लिए मजबूर हो गए।
You know, Jyoti, we've seen this sort of thing happen in the past as well, perceived as a direct provocation to India, where visiting leaders, have, first stopped and met with separatists before their meetings with India. That didn't happen when Nawaz Sharif had come, for the swearing-in ceremony. That perhaps, had its own perception. But given how the BJP, when it was in the opposition, has criticized the Manmohan Singh government for, doing nothing, for, appearing weak by not, for jumping into talks or continuing with talks despite provocations. Is that why they needed to send out a strong message like this one? Because this was an identical situation.
I think you're absolutely right. I think you've hit the nail on the head, which is that Narendra Modi's so-called invitation to all the SAARC leaders at the swearing-in perhaps didn't go down very well with the RSS elders back in Nagpur. I think the impression was that there is no need for this Prime Minister in waiting at the time and now Prime Minister of India to sort of have reached out in this way, especially the invitation to the Pakistan Prime Minister. But I think Narendra Modi did very well. Now for the Prime Minister to suddenly develop a very thin skin overnight. You played out this clip from Kargil recently, when he talked about the proxy war that Pakistan has been indulging in, and I think to say it in the way that he said it was absolutely right. I think that's Narendra Modi's strength, to say it as it is, to speak, to talk about what a lot of Indians feel, and absolutely, I think Pakistan has had, especially in the early 90s, the proxy war against India, and which continues in so many ways, not only proxy but overtly at the line of control, as you know, with lots of infiltrations and other violations. Having said that, I think you cannot cut off a diplomatic conversation like this. Countries must be able to talk to each other, especially neighbors. Let's talk about the fact that we disagree that the Pakistan High Commissioner has invited Hurriyat leaders. Listen, first of all, these Hurriyat leaders are Indian, okay? They carry Indian passports, they have Indian nationalities, they are Indian citizens. For them to meet a High Commissioner who is accredited to the Indian government, to India, sure, he is the Pakistan High Commissioner. I'm sure there are other things that they talk about which are perhaps not perhaps not very complimentary to India.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean that the Indian government or Prime Minister Narendra Modi should have such a thin skin. We have to be able to understand that there are so many views, especially in the India-Pakistan story, which is it's a very, very complex story. I think people should be allowed to talk. After all, over the last few days, when Prime Minister Narendra Modi made this proxy war comment, there was a retort from Pakistan. Right. I think India kept quiet, and that's how it should have been. There is a conversation, or there was a conversation between the two foreign secretaries that was scheduled for the 25th of this month.
Okay.
They should have let them go ahead. It was not going to be one of those make or break affairs anyway.
Right.
It was going to be a preparatory conversation before Prime Minister Modi met the Pakistan Prime Minister.
Let's try and get a view in from Pakistan as well. Tariq Pirzada, analyst, is with us on the phone line. Mr. Pirzada, talks are off the table, not expected for the government to react in this very strong manner, but the provocations were real, they were present, they were visible, they were public, and the Indian government has hit back and said, I'm sorry, the provocations are way too many, no talks for now. Mr. Pirzada.
Well, you know that this was not the first time a Pakistani ambassador had met or any Pakistani official had met the Hurraiyat leaders. So, making it an excuse for the cancellation of talks that were scheduled to be held on the 25th of this month, that is a sad and illogical conclusion drawn by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And I don't know who influenced the Prime Minister of India. He has just stepped into the office. And
but this is bad for Pakistan, Mr. Pirzada. I mean, Pakistan took the initiative asking for these talks.
Well, of course, listen, here is what it is. The talks are designed to serve the interests of both the countries. Sure. It is never a unilateral thing that was intended either that has been intended either by Pakistan or by India. The talks always, if they become fruitful, they are always helpful to the two sides. So that's not the issue at the present time. The issue is why cancel these talks when we were only a few days away, and you did not make the internal situation of Pakistan as an excuse. But the government of India has said that because the ambassador met with the Hurraiyat leaders, and because the Prime Minister had been saying...
There may be an ideal way to look at things, a more sort of measured way to look at things. But at the end of the day, in India right now, there's only one way that, conversations with separatists are looked at, especially in public, in the political sphere. Like Jyoti said, there are perceptions right now. But before I go back to Jyoti, I want to quickly play out for you what the Ministry of External Affairs' spokesperson, Syed Akbaruddin, has said. This is the formal government statement on the cancellation of these talks.
Thank you.
I want to get you another view from Pakistan to this fresh development. Zafar Hilali, former diplomat and political analyst in Pakistan, is with us. Mr. Hilali, your reactions to the Modi government cancelling the foreign secretary level talks that were scheduled for this month?
Well, I think that's to be expected. They talk of the Simla agreement. They talk of their constitution, but they don't talk of the United Nations resolution which suggests that Kashmir is a dispute. And it is a dispute between two countries. And here we were trying to be helpful in trying to resolve this dispute by talking to the other stakeholders in the dispute. And America and India has reacted in this way. I think Modi has made it very clear that he wants no talks except on his own terms. I think in that case, there will be no talks, there should be no talks, and I think we can go back to the old position where we were manning our battlements, and so will you, and may God help us all.
Okay, Zafar Hilali, thanks for bringing us that perspective. Jyoti, I want to bring you back on this. Given and you've been in touch with your sources in government, Jyoti. Given that these talks, the MEA has constantly said these talks are exploratory in nature. They try to play down how substantive the discussions may actually be. Given their exploratory sort of intentions, was it really necessary for Pakistan, knowing that meeting with separatists is something that isn't looked at in two ways in India? Was it really necessary for them to do it then?
I agree with you. I don't think the Pakistan High Commissioner should have invited the Hurraiyat separatists. I think it was bad form on his part. It's a discourtesy. The two foreign secretaries are going to meet in a week, and for him to invite so-called sort of rebels or separatists from Kashmir to Delhi.
Yeah.
It was not necessary at all. It was, I think, I would not even go so far to call it a red rag. I think it was plain discourteous. Having said that, I think the Indian government should have ignored him because he doesn't. I think this gesture was meant to, whatever it was meant. I'm not going into this to the Pakistan High Commissioner's intentions, but I think the Indian government is much bigger than that. I think we are, the Indian state, after all, accepted that there would be this foreign secretary dialogue. And I think we have to discuss our disagreements, our differences with Pakistan across the table. Let me also tell you, when Nawaz Sharif came in May for Prime Minister in, there was a very simple request on India's part to Pakistan, which was that it was very, very simple. We didn't talk about most favored nation status. There was nothing about visas. Firstly, it was too soon for all of that. This was one of those events when people were getting to know each other. Nawaz Sharif committed to Narendra Modi at the time that he would promote the business interaction between the two countries, promote trade between the two countries. Nothing has happened. I think this was a conversation in Islamabad next week where India should have told Pakistan.
The big story here on Headlines today, India has called off scheduled talks with Pakistan. The three pictures you see on your television screen, Pakistan's aggression at the international border, the 200-kilometer long international border in Jammu. The second provocation, Pakistan meeting Hurriyat leaders, Pakistan's High Commissioner to India, Abdul Basit, meeting Hurriyat leaders in Delhi before the Foreign Secretary talks. And the third picture you see, Prime Minister Narendra Modi taking that bold decision to call off talks with Pakistan. Before we move on in this bulletin, let's quickly listen in to Syed Akbaruddin, the spokesperson for the Ministry of External Affairs. Joining me now for more on this big story here on Headlines today is senior journalist Siddharth Vardarajan. Also with me is senior writer India Today Jyoti Malhotra, and Headlines Today's deputy editor Defence Shiv Arur. Siddharth, what do you make of the Ministry of External Affairs saying no useful purpose would be served with Foreign Secretary travelling to Pakistan?
Well, I think it's very unfortunate that the Modi government has buckled under the sort of very insipid pressure that the Congress party was mounting and that the media was trying to drum up. These kinds of meetings between the Hurriyat and Pakistani officials is a ritual of sorts. You go back and look at the diplomatic calendar of the last 15 years. Every time before any substantive India-Pakistan engagement at the official or political level, Hurriyat leaders make the obligatory visit to the High Commission and have a chat. And in the past, India has always taken the view that as a democratic country, in fact, Sham Saran as Foreign Secretary in 2005, when asked about this on the eve of Musharraf's visit, said, look, anybody can come here and meet whoever they want. This is a democratic country and we have no problem with these kinds of meetings. So I think to use this as an excuse to call off what was a universally applauded initiative by Prime Minister Modi on his very first day in office is not just shows that the government doesn't have the stomach for diplomacy, but it's a huge setback because we have dug ourselves into a position from which now normalizing or going back towards the path of normalization is going to be very difficult.
Okay, stay with me, Siddharth Vardarajan. Shiv, you've been speaking to your sources both in the Ministry of Defence and the Ministry of Home Affairs, and Pakistan violating the international border, violating ceasefire along the line of control, they all add up to vitiating the environment. Is that right?
That's absolutely correct, Gaurav. We've seen, we've seen the activation of the line of control happen steadily and then quite steeply over the last 16 to 17 months. Strictly speaking of the line of control, which you and I both have covered, in the last few months. What we've seen over the last 2 to 3 weeks is a specific spike in activity on the international border. In the last 9 days, there have been apparently as many as 9 separate provocations, including from 9:30 last night. 20 posts of the BSF in the Ranbir Singhpura sector and other parts of the Jammu sector, have come under direct attack. And that's something that hasn't been seen for many, many years. The line of control, it's expected that ceasefire violations have happened, exchanges of fire have happened. We saw that happen starting from January last year. But this year, this year, starting from around the end of May till the incidents that we're seeing right now, has made it a special case. And after Narendra Modi made that comment in Kargil on the conventional strength of Pakistan, we've seen 11 violations on the international border. Obviously, that's not a coincidence. It's definitely vitiated the atmosphere.
Okay. Jyoti, when Prime Minister Narendra Modi was campaigning for office, he'd said, Goli Barood ke beech, baatcheet sunai nahi deti. Is he just walking the talk, or has he succumbed to pressure?
Well, I think it's very clear that Narendra Modi, who invited not only Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif of Pakistan, but all the SAARC leaders to participate in his swearing in May, has now decided that the Foreign Secretary talks will be called off. And I think it's very clear that he has taken this decision. Shiv just pointed out that the LOC has been violated over the last several weeks in a manner that he has not seen, or India has not seen, for several years. Now, if by that you mean that Pakistan is upping the ante and is therefore sort of putting the onus on India to take a call, then all I would like to say is that we have to be smarter than Pakistan. Pakistan upping the ante by mounting pressure on the line of control, you know, sort of all the violations, the intrusions, the infiltration, the firing, I think that's a very big deal. Okay. Having said that, I think India has to be much smarter than Pakistan, and India has to say that we will continue to talk, because it's a much better way than firing across the LOC, infiltrating and doing all kinds of things that Pakistan has done for decades, right?
Okay, Siddharth,
and that's what the Foreign Secretary level talks was going to be about. Okay. India was going to tell Pakistan that this is not on, that you haven't fulfilled your promises on a range of issues, right from firing across the LOC to trade. So to call off the talks, I think India has put itself not in a good space.
Okay, but Siddharth, what would these talks have achieved when there is firing going on at the line of control, when there is a spike in terrorism? They've targeted BSF officials, they've targeted BSF posts, and there's a deliberate provocation in meeting the Hurriyat leaders. Should Pakistan have met Hurriyat leaders if the talks were as important to Pakistan, Siddharth?
Two points. As I said earlier, you'll be hard-pressed to find any occasion in the past. Go back and look at the record. 2012 meeting of Home Secretaries, 2012 meeting of Foreign Secretaries, Hina Ramani Khan's visit to India.
Yes, but that recent May meeting, Pakistan did not meet Hurriyat when Nawaz Sharif came.
No, he came for a bilateral visit. He was here for a few hours. He came in for criticism, in fact, in Pakistan for not having met them. But I'm saying the usual pattern of the Indo-Pak diplomatic ritual involves this completely pointless meeting between Hurriyat, who everybody agrees is completely irrelevant to the internal situation in Jammu and Kashmir. So for India to get spooked, for the Modi government to get spooked by this meeting, just tells you how much they're lacking in confidence. And obviously, I think Jyoti made a fair point that if the situation on the LC has gotten the worst it's been in a few years, all the more reason to go and talk, right? Arun Jaitley, when he was asked a week ago as defense minister, why is the FS, what's on her plate when she goes, in fact mentioned ceasefire violations as item number 1. So the fact that you have a disturbed LC is all the more reason to have your talks and to tell the Pakistanis that, look, this kind of thing is not acceptable.
Okay.
You can't retreat into a shell and say, I'm not going to talk to you.
Okay, but those talks, there are talks happening, there is a diplomatic channel of communication that is open. Why increase it to the level of the foreign secretary or the foreign minister?
Because that channel is not working. The hotline between DGMOs is clearly not working, right? So obviously you have to step it up. If you're concerned about LC violations, then the idea is that you step it up. You raise the level, you raise the level of engagement, you raise the diplomatic pressure on Pakistan. If you're going to leave it just to the DGMOs, this obscene dance where people are getting killed or there's a threat of loss of life virtually every week is going to carry on indefinitely. So all the more reason to engage in diplomatic talks and to find a way out of this crisis.
But does this mean, Jyoti, that the pressure on the government from Pakistan is that they keep a gun to your head, say talk, or there will be terror? That's point 1. And point 2, Jyoti, will this have an impact on Prime Minister Narendra Modi's likely meeting with Nawaz Sharif on the sidelines of the UNGA?
Okay, I'm going to take the second one first, which is that I think the likelihood of the meeting between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif of Pakistan on the margins of the UNGA in New York in late September has reduced drastically. Because unless Narendra Modi and the Pakistan establishment find some sort of a via media, some meeting ground on which there can be this meeting, I don't think there's going to be a meeting. Although, you know, to say there's a month and a half advance is also being a bit brave.
Yes.
On your first question about Pakistan putting a gun to India's head, I think that's plain silly. To say that anybody can put a gun to India's head is I think, completely unnecessary, and it's a very, you know, forgive me, but it's a juvenile thing to say. The point here is, what is the kind of neighborhood India wants? For Narendra Modi to invite the leaders of this neighborhood to his swearing in in late May, was an incredible gesture.
Which was not reciprocated by Pakistan in kind, because of the kind of shelling that we see at the line of control, Shiv.
By the way, parts of the Pakistani establishment, especially the army, I doubt wants to have a conversation with India.